Farm4Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm4Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm4Profit Podcast.
Well, hey, listeners, welcome back to the Farm4Profit Podcast. This is Tanner, Corey, Dave, all in the studio together.
Feels good.
Yep.
Friday afternoon.
I feel like I missed the brown.
Yeah, it's afternoon.
I feel like I missed the brown hat memo. Or did Dave miss the Maya hat
Dave missed
memo?
the Maya memo.
I actually have the Maya hat. It's for the next one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we do record more than one a day, don't we?
Yeah.
Listeners, thank you so much for being a fan and a friend. We want to challenge you to share this with 5 people.
Ooh.
We did that once, and it worked out really well for us.
Did
You
it?
guys are awesome. So if you do have 5 people that you could text this to, send them the link to the show.
If you find value in it.
No, just do it.
I don't want to force them to do something.
We could
Actually, if you don't like it, send it to 5 people you don't like.
Oh, that's a good idea. Say, hey, this is something you should check out. That's good. See, we can get 5. Actually, you know what? We could probably do it both ways and get 10 out of each person.
There we
Send
go.
5
There we
friends and 5 frenemies.
Yeah. And while you're doing that, review the show.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
That would be great. Spotify, Apple,
YouTube.
wherever you listen.
Leave a review.
Leave a review, comment. It helps.
Yeah, we certainly love everything that you bring our way as far as topic ideas go. And we, 2 years ago, talked combines in the spring. It was actually March.
Okay.
And that show did well. And we got some repeat requests to give some more insight on maybe some combine settings or just a way to make sure that we're getting all the yield out of the field. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, preparation for fall harvest starts now.
That's true.
Yep. Got to be
Probably should have started yesterday.
Yeah.
But we didn't get the show done in time.
Assuming you're planted already.
Well, that is the main goal to get done. But
we're going to do it in a fun way with a farmer who's got experience. We want to welcome Todd Dale to the podcast. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
We're good. And I just want to say, who was it? John Wayne that said you can't trust somebody with 2 first names? Is that what he said?
I don't know if it was him or not.
I'll make it worse. You add my middle name in, and I've got 3. William, so you got Todd, William, Dale, and there's just a lot of trust that may or may not be directed or need to be directed this way.
You should go by that. It sounds like a singer or an actor or something.
Yeah.
Todd William Dale.
I'm not good at either one of those things. I promise you, nobody wants to hear that.
I do like that, the Todd William Dale, the TWD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now we got to get you a cattle brand.
Yeah.
Just turn you into all things that you're not. So where are you calling in from today?
I'm actually calling in from Northeast Indiana. So I live here about 45 minutes north of Fort Wayne, where I'm a mile away from Ohio and maybe 25 miles away from Michigan. So up in the far northeast corner of the state.
Okay.
You know, we had a conversation that kind of opened my eyes when you talk about land value from the Iowa side of the river going to the Illinois side of the river. And
Right.
land sells better in Iowa than it does in Illinois.
It does?
Wasn't that what we came across?
I thought they said it was pretty comparable.
I bet it's
Oh.
very comparable. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
So how is that with where you're sitting at there in Indiana and Ohio? Is there a difference if you cross state lines?
Typically, yes, and it depends. Even in the state of Indiana, you get certain areas that are up above, in the 15,000+ an acre range, and this is just farm ground, not commercial or building ground, just a farm. And then there's still some parts of the states that would be in the sub 10, but not many. So you get into Ohio and you'll probably be a little bit less than some of that, and at least up here in this corner of it. But there's parts in central Ohio. You get back down into central Ohio, southern Ohio, you go right back up. I don't think it's quite like Iowa and Illinois prices are, but hasn't gotten any cheaper over the years. I can tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what Dave says. Land's always going up.
It is.
Right?
That's right.
Yep. Don't wait to buy it.
So what kind of crops do you
Buy land
grow up there in northeastern Indiana?
it's predominantly a corn, soybean, and wheat country. Quite a bit of wheat, really, compared to some of the places that I go and travel and see where it's mainly corn and soybeans. Quite a pretty significant need for straw for the dairies, the feedlots, things like that. So that drives the need for wheat crops up, and wheat's been doing really well. I mean, last 4 or 5, maybe 10 years, it's not uncommon to get, you're a little bit 100 bushel wheat. So if you can kind of set that as your target or overachieve on that aspect of it, you're going to have a pretty decent check in the summer at some point in time for it. And then you get into some, we're just south in the southern Michigan area. There's a big market for seed corn production. Okay. So there's a lot of guys up there growing seed corn, and that trickles down into the state of Indiana a little bit, and seems to be a pretty good market for seed beans as well here. That kind of can be anywhere. But and then there's a couple popcorn. There's a few popcorn plants that are maybe 80 miles south that quite a few growers have gotten into that market a little bit here more in the last few years. But predominantly corn, soybeans, and wheat with some slight variations in popcorn, seed corn, and then now you're getting into the non-GMOs, organics, all that type of thing as well for each of those crops.
So it's May 10th when we're recording this, and it's been a pretty trying planting season. What's the crop update out there?
Most of it is still in the bags, especially right in our neck of the woods. We've had about a day and a half or maybe 2.5 days of decent planting weather. And aside from that, it's been, if you got some light, we have a lot of variability in the soil in this area. So our lighter, sandier ground was able to go a little bit sooner, but not much. It's in our area north of Fort Wayne and north, even to the south a little bit. That's where my dad's located. There's a lot of planters that haven't hit the dirt yet, right? Unfortunately, and we're probably two weeks now. I mean, a good 2 weeks behind where everybody would like to be.
Right.
I was going to say, I heard Illinois and Indiana were actually behind us in Iowa. That actually Iowa has more planted than Illinois and Indiana.
Yeah, a lot of my friends out east could never get a window early, and then now they've finally had a little bit of planting while we're out of the fields. But we had, I don't know, maybe in total 7 or 8 decent days of planting here in Iowa, and then we started raining every other day, and not a lot of wheels have turned for, it's going on 2.5 weeks now.
What corn's up, though?
Yeah, that's the silver lining, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's been raining in Brazil, too.
Yep.
Just really making that kind of miserable. But are you out there, Todd, farming with family, or what's that look like?
Yep. So I'm pretty fortunate. I've got here at home my in-laws farm, and it's a small farm, just a few hundred acres. And then my dad, he's a little bit larger scale. He's got some full-time hired help and things like that. So I get down there sometimes, but for the most part, if I show up, it's usually a bad day for them because I'm wanting to change something, do something, and I just make it worse. So they do their thing and they get along really well. But yeah, I just kind of work on 2 family farms in between working my normal job. Yep.
He set you guys up perfectly for a follow-up question. You're all looking at me.
Hey,
Todd,
someone was giving me a phone call.
What's your normal job?
Well, I work for Estes Concaves. So I do sales and a little bit of sales, but mainly the support and phone support, travel to places if needed. And then I do a lot of our dealer setup. So any companies that want to be a dealer for us, I've worked at a John Deere dealer for several years in the past. So I've got experience on both sides of that fence, I guess. So it works out pretty well.
So how long have you been with Estes?
Since would have been January of 22. So
a couple years now.
Going on, a few years now.
What made you make the transition? I'm assuming. So you were at a John Deere dealer before that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was been at a John Deere dealer before that, and we actually started at the dealership. We started selling these concaves, and so our store, the store I was working at, where I was, the technical title of my name was technical title of my job was a CST, a customer support technician. So not necessarily a full-time tech, hands-on wrenches all the time, but a lot of it was just the operational side of things. And with the equipment these days, as much technology as there is in them, one of the things I was tasked with was learning that and then being able to relay it to the customers that were buying these pieces of equipment. So, so I was always trying to optimize the equipment, myself and a few others, always trying to optimize whatever piece of equipment our customers had to make it as good as we could make it. And that ended up leading us down the road of these concaves. And so the one fall, we ended up selling about 25 sets of them in season just through one of our locations. The dealership did. Okay. And so that must have been enough to catch the attention of the folks at Estus, and then offered a job kind of coming on board with them. And prior to that, Estus had never really had dealers either. So not a wide dealer program. So that was kind of my first task there, was to help set up and develop a dealership program that we could implement and kind of hit the ground running with up in, once the next sales season got to us.
So I'm going to try Dave. This is his first year farming. Okay. And he is learning everything. Dave, do you know what a concave is in a combine?
I know it's in the center of it, basically where the grain is going to go, or the hole, I think anyway. It's where the hole...
He might be wrong, but he doubts it.
where the kernels come off, isn't it, where it's...
So you have your rotor that's spinning,
that's
and
spinning,
it's the cage that's around it that's basically the rotor thrashing the cobs, the seed, and separating the seed from the cob, and all that kind of stuff. So they have, just like... John Deere, Case, all these combine manufacturers make a very good machine, right? But
they got to make it for every crop,
for a large amount of acres and a large swath. It's just like owning a car. You can always put more horsepower. You can always do different tires or wheels and all that. Like, this is like an aftermarket thing to dial in, better grain quality and things of that nature.
Okay.
So, just wanted to preface that and get Dave on board because he's learning.
So do you need a different set of concaves for different crops?
So let me add to what you were explaining to Dave there. I'll tell you, even as all the years I worked at a dealership, the number of folks that own combines, run combines, and a lot of times when they buy our system, that's the first time they've ever actually put their hands on a concave. So don't feel alone at all, even in your first year. It's one of those things that it's just a given. Like, you buy a combine, it does combine things. It starts, you see the crop in front of you, it's standing, it's nice and pretty, or it's dead, whatever. And then you look behind you and all the grain's in the hopper. So the concaves are a very significant piece to that equation between the concaves and the rotor.
So what makes Estus better than the rest?
Yep. So one, going back to Tanner's question there, one thing with our system is it's a one system for all crops. Oh. Now, a lot of the times, especially the Illinois, Iowa guys, like corn and soybeans, you're already the system that comes in the combine is usually going to do both for the most part. Gotcha. But when you start adding summer crops, or you get into the wheats, the milos, the oats, even further extreme than that with onion seed, carrot seed, clover seed, hemp seed. Now, is becoming a cash crop in some areas.
We talked to a farmer from Oregon that does grass seed.
Yeah, we've got Oregon and Washington are very. That's on my list of places to get to this year, just because it's the crops they grow. They do have some corn and wheat, but the things they grow are just, for me and for like guys like you, would be like, wow, that's pretty cool to see. Just something that I've never seen. I want to get my eyes on. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, anything you plant has to be grown somewhere, whether that's a $450 bag of corn or it's a 30, whatever at the grass seed, you're buying at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you're buying your grass seed for your lawn. It comes
that's
from
like
somewhere and
$3 a
it's all run
pound.
through a combine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one big benefit of the concaves is that our one system works on all of those crops that I mentioned. Whatever runs through a combine, once ours is in, it stays in. You just move to the next one and put your head down and go to work.
Right. So this is my, I think,
I knew you had
second or third year with Estus XPR2s that I put in, and it's awesome. Makes setting the combine a lot easier. We do a lot of seed beans, so like being too aggressive with the beans and getting splits, they don't like that. They discount you for that. So that was one of the big things. Is a lot of less trash in the tank, easier thrashing. Corn, like high moisture corn, does a lot better that way too. That's
Really?
what we've noticed.
Yeah, it's, kind of get into the boring scientific reason of it works as well as it does is our system's made, it's initiated a round bar, and then we cut a out of that round bar so it ends up being similar, like a size like this. And what that's doing is that's providing threshing surface area, and any concave is doing that. There's different sizes and forms, and they all have their benefits. But the key is just adding surface area so that as the rotor's going around and has something to throw the grain up against or thresh with, that additional surface area allows you to slow down the speed of a rotor as what it normally would be. What that does is what Corey said, that gets you better grain quality. So when you're in a higher moisture corn situation and you might be used to, I'll use a deer as a reference, be used to running 440, 460 of a rotor speed. And now all of a sudden these new concaves allow you to run a rotor speed of 300. Then you're spinning the rotor that much slower, which is going to translate somehow into better grain quality.
So these combines that are big with twin rotors, are they, you got to buy 2 sets of concaves?
Yeah. So like an X9, for example, or even we've got a system out this year with the release of our new product on the Fent combines. And yeah, it's you equip, you're just eyeing the same thing twice, putting it on each rotor and utilizing the concaves for however many rotors you got, I guess.
So is that twin rotor design, is that just kind of like the same thing? Like you're trying to get more threshing surface. Does the twin rotor get you more threshing surface, or what's the benefit of that? I guess I've never looked into it.
It would be so if you just think of it in the physical measurement aspect of it, like a John Deere, like a 780, 760, whatever, any John Deere combine is a 30-inch rotor right now, a single rotor. With the twin rotors, I think they're like a 24-inch, so you end up going from one 30-inch rotor to 2 24-inch rotors. And so your threshing surface area, sure, but just threshing in general, you got twice you've got, in theory, simple math, 48 inches worth of rotors working for you as opposed to 30. So you're able to just consume so much more grain and material than you can with one rotor.
So it gets you the capacity.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you'd slow down the speed. Does that affect your bushels per hour? Can you still drive just as fast?
Yeah. So you think about when they first came out with the rotor combines, and the key to these rotors was always combines got to be full to be effective. So it's got, your peak efficiency of the machine is when that rotor is just full and working. And so by slowing the rotor down, you're actually helping keep it full better than it might do with the faster rotor speed. So if the rotor's spinning really fast and it's running material from the front to back quickly, as a fast rotor speed would do, if you can slow it down, you're kind of condensing, making the grain pile on top of each other, if you will, to keep the rotor full, which is going to just optimize the performance of the machine even further.
So question for you guys. Is is there an agitator like a washing machine inside the rotor of a combine? Because my front load washing machine sucks compared to the one with the old one with the agitator in the center.
Well, rotor is it's the thing spinning in the middle.
Yeah, so the concave is the stationary piece on the outside.
Yeah.
The rotor is your agitator.
All right, you got to have an agitator because if you don't, it sucks.
Yeah. But unlike a washing machine, these are better to be ran full.
No, yeah, exactly. If I put too many, then it's unlevel. Oh, man. I digress.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's walking across the floor.
It is. I keep getting this uneven thing, and it's supposed to, like, auto-level itself. It takes, like, 8 hours for, like, one load. It's like, screw it.
You're just going to wear dirty clothes.
I'm going to go back to the old, Maytag, piece of junk, one button.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I've never even thought of it that way. But, yeah, that's exactly what it is. You're right.
Well, and like a washing machine, you have to level it, right?
Yeah.
You have to level these concaves
when
you put them in. Like, so there's a process because you can change how close the concaves are to the rotor. That's how you adjust stuff. And so when you put new concaves in, you have to zero it out, basically. Is that what you guys call it?
Yeah. So you set it, you close it up entirely, as far closed as you can get it. And you're basically, with the terminology we use is you're going to set gaps. So you're going to set a gap in the front and a gap in the rear. And ultimately what that does is that gives you the floor of the rotor cage is all perfectly flat. You want it to be as flat as it can be, so that,
You guys need a shirt that says "Mind the Gap."
Mind the gap. There you go.
You get that's.
Is that the biggest?
Mind the gap.
There you go. Is that the biggest complaint? Like people that aren't happy with your concaves or someone else, like you go there and find that it's not leveled correct?
Yeah. I would say I don't know that there's been one system that I've gone to visit that's been a troublesome one for that particular customer that doesn't get fixed just by readjusting the actual concave itself.
Because even the stock ones should be level.
Yes, that's the thing. And that's the thing, too. A lot of the times, I wonder how much of the frustration that some farmers may have with their existing setup is related to not the fact that they're using an OEM concave, but just the fact that concave may not be set correctly.
So help me understand.
If it's not right.
Help me understand. You said this works for all types of crops. So a wheat seed is going to be different than a kernel of corn. Mm-hmm. So when we're minding the gap, that's going to be different. So do we have to change this every time for every seed? Or like you were saying at the beginning, ours work with every crop. Do we adjust this every time?
Yeah. I mean, maybe a few times a day. But it's not a hands and wrenches adjustment. There's a button in the cab. You can, from the cab, what you're doing is you're opening and closing the concave throughout the day. And so once they're bolted into their fixed position, they're on an adjustment rod that's able to open and close to whatever that next crop requires.
Right. So, like a good combine setting, like in a John Deere, is like in millimeters.
Yeah.
I think what's like a cob, a general rule of thumb, like 25 millimeters for a cob?
It'd be about an inch. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the times they would teach you to take like the round end of a wrench and go find a cob that's on the ground. Slide the wrench over the cob. If a 24 millimeter wrench fits, or a 26 or an 18, then your concave setting is typically going to be in that neighborhood.
It's a great place to start. And then you can kind of adjust it either way. But as you go into a smaller grain crop, I would imagine you're going to tighten your concave. And as you go into a corn, you're going to widen it so you can get the cobs through.
So, Dave, you're going to have your first crop custom combined.
Yeah.
When you are shopping for your custom combine crew, are you going to ask them if they're running Estes Concaves?
I didn't. The only thing I really want to know is that my width was correct with their width, and that that my width of my planter and the way I planted everything was going to match up with theirs. And then also I did multiple varieties, so I want to make sure that however many size head they had matched with my varieties, as well as I might have a smaller planter and they might have a bigger head on their combine. So how many outside rows do I need to do? because I can turn tighter with my little tractor and my planter than maybe they can with a
Sure.
bigger rig. So those are the only questions I asked.
But
Todd, do you have a lot of custom operators running your concaves?
Yes. And especially when you get into like the wheat runs, you know, the big custom harvest crews that are starting in the south and going north, because and I've had guys that have bought them from us and they say, hey, if I don't have to change anything, if my guys don't have to change anything, I don't care if it's exactly equal performance wise, but if we don't have to change anything, that saves us, you know, nuts and bolts and fingertips, and that's just one thing that these guys will like working here that much more, because we don't have to change concaves 15 times a year.
So
whatever.
what would you have to change? I have no idea.
So if you're going to take the whole concave out, I should pull up a picture of a concave for you.
I know what they look like, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious, why would you have to change them 15 times a year?
If you didn't have a universal one and you went and you were running a wheat harvest crew and then you moved yourself into soybean territory and moved yourself into corn territory.
rice.
I'm still missing it here. If they're all adjustable and we adjust it to a 22 millimeter,
so
we adjust it to a 24.
they're adjusting
The gap.
the gap, but if some concaves are specific for like
For specific.
wheat or like they might have smaller holes
Okay,
on the
I get
concaves
it.
and all that.
Why they change it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, because I assume that John Deere or somebody is going to put a universal one in their combine.
They have universal for different crops, I guess.
Okay.
So you can order a rice combine, and it's going to come with the necessary parts that are either going to wear faster or be necessary for combining rice when you specifically put your order together.
So
Are we right in saying that, Todd?
It would be wear less. Like rice is so abrasive that if you order a combine with a rice package, it's equipped a little bit differently. But the main thing is the parts that are in it, in this rotor area that's doing all the threshing, is that's the parts that are going to have extended wear. They're going to be built to last longer rather than. But even them, they're still going to burn up quicker in a rice combine than they will in a corn and soybean, just because it's so abrasive.
How many custom operators? When we were out in California, you know, we have 28 different crops, and here in Iowa we have basically 2, maybe 3 different deals and maybe only 2 that the combine goes over. So if they're corn and beans and hay, you know, the combine's only going to hit a couple crops. So out of custom operators, how many people need universal?
But the custom guys will start, like the big time crews will go down to Texas.
Oh, really?
And they'll work their way through.
They're running 12, 15 combines.
Yeah. And they'll go all the way up to Canada.
Gotcha.
And so that's what
I thought the
gonna ask.
Montana guys were just the Montana guys, and the
No.
Kansas
Oh,
guys
right.
were just the Kansas guys. Now I get it. Okay, fair enough.
I was going to ask you, though, Todd, do they find the custom operators that you've got equipped, do they find that their clients benefit from having those in? I know you said that they didn't care if they performed any differently as long as it was, you know, easy for them to go from spot to spot. But is it a bonus for them if they can say they're running XPR2s or even upgraded?
Yeah, so with the custom harvest crews, like I was saying, the fact they don't have to change concaves anymore between their whatever crops they may be harvesting is a benefit. But the one comment that sticks out in my head was a guy that was based out of South Dakota, and he said if it's just as good quality and loss-wise as what we're used to, if we don't have to change them, that's great. That we'll take a set for all 18 combines, whatever it was. And it took a few weeks worth of the harvest starting, and he called and says, well, we don't have to change them. That's nice. I told you that would be nice. But the quality and the lower loss levels that we're getting are far better than we've ever achieved before. So not only were they happy they didn't have to change anything, but the benefits of the system as far as quality that those farmers that had hired them were giving, they were getting for the farmers was even better than they've ever had before.
Right.
And less being left on the ground, especially in the wheat, the summer type crop. So that's a tough crop to harvest and limit or minimize your yields or your yield losses. And our concaves do a really good job of helping solidify that fact.
Okay. So this gives me an idea. Alejandro at Iowa State runs the custom rate spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I talked to him about like high boy spraying and side dressing. There wasn't a line item in there a couple years ago. Now there is. Well, there's a line item whether you have row clutches on your planter, high-speed planter, hydraulic downforce, all that kind of stuff. Like you can actually charge more, $2 acres or more for row clutches and all that.
Oh.
We should be charging more because we're giving you better quality.
Oh.
You have less loss. You're getting more in the deal. So maybe it's $1 or $2 extra, and I can help pay for my aftermarket concaves.
Because how does somebody know they need to purchase new concaves? Or is it just a decision a lot of guys do when the combine shows up?
A lot of the time what we get is when their existing system is worn out. So like a round bar or the wire concaves, even when they start to get a flat edge on them instead of maintaining that roundness, they lose a little bit of their effectiveness. So usually that's what it is, and that's a lot of the time we'll hear them say, I'm really interested in the stuff, but I got one more year to run my concaves, and then we'll be back in touch with you. So we get that a lot. The fact of the matter is, the way our system should be viewed is it's not a part replacement like I feel like that gets treated, where you're just replacing our parts with what you had on there. Ours is a threshing system upgrade kit. So when is the wrong time to buy an upgrade kit? Is there one? I don't know.
That's a thuck kit.
A what?
A thuck kit. a threshing system upgrade kit.
I had my finger on the bleep button.
Performance upgrade kit. That's a thuck.
Oh God! I will tell you, Todd.
I was about ready to bleep whatever you were saying.
I would not discount that, though. Yes, it is an upgrade, but what a time! Because that's when we learned about you on the Bush Light Combine, the 9770.
When you needed upgrades.
Our OEMs, like I didn't know. I knew there were concaves out there. I never even looked into it. Ours were worn out, and we had it at the local John Deere dealer, and they said, yeah, they're worn out. The new ones will be X amount of dollars, whatever. That's when we started going, can we be better at this? And that's when I found XPR too. So we put them on, and quite frankly, so you get the grain quality and you get the threshing, but we felt that we actually got our capacity because it took less power to thresh that grain.
I got you.
So we could run a little bit faster and push that 7 Series combine, maybe get up to that next class. Do you see a lot of guys doing that?
That's a really good way of putting it. That's what a lot of the times adding our system will upsize your combine. So maybe you're running a 770 or a 760 and thinking about trading, or you just picked up 500 more acres to harvest, and you're like, oh, it was already Thanksgiving before I got done. Now it's going to be who knows when. So you think about upgrading a combine, that's going to cost you just a cool $200,000, $250,000 to upgrade, or whatever it is. Or you can buy concaves and maybe get the same result that you're after. The problem that's really in front of you is time. How much time do we got to do it? And do we have enough time? Is it going to take us too long? So maybe the answer there is concaves, because it's not uncommon to be able to, if you were to have a 770, and again, I'm just talking in Deere terms, but a 770 with our system running right beside a 780 with an OEM system, that 770 is going to be equal to or able to outperform what a 780 can do. That's one of the marketing things that we use in when we're talking to folks about what they can expect. Now, the other thing is, can you handle that in all reality? Because if you're going to add 800 or 1,000 or 1,500 bushels an hour to your operation, that's a truck, a grain cart, dumping faster at your pits, getting through the line at town quicker. Sometimes, just because you got the ability to do it, sometimes too, that just means you're in a hurry up and wait situation, and it's a multi in corn.
Todd, is that how Estus came about?
More.
Is that how they started? Is they wanted more power, like Tim the Toolman Taylor, and they said, "Let's do this; it'll give us more power." Or what started?
It was right around the same time that the S series machines were introduced. So the bigger thing was losses that the just kind of natural or given losses that a combine has. The system was first developed. It was called the RPR system, and that was designed to address the losses. And as time has gone on, and we've went from RPRs to XPRs to XPR2s, and now the XPR3s.
Gotcha.
It's kind of stays with the time. It's revolutionizing the system of the concave and making it more beneficial than always.
So
And the ground speed, the throughput is kind of a nice benefit, but there's not, the grain quality and the lowering the losses are the two things that we hear customers want to fix the most.
Okay.
So I heard you just say XPR3s. I have the XPR2s. So what's the benefit of going to the 3s?
Yeah, so the 3s we just released at the Louisville Farm Show this past February. And with the 3s, it was hard. It was tough to come up with a system and you've got the 2s, Corey. So like the 2s were really good, and they've been on the market for about 4 years. So trying to come up with it's taken us years to come up with a solution that's better than the XPR2s. And basically what we've done is, if you could picture your system now, all the bars are somewhat straight in line from front to back with each other. Concave 1, 2, and 3, all the same angle of bars. All we did for the 3s was we took the number 1 concave and placed it on a helical slant. And so with that slant, what that does is, as the material is wrapping around the rotor, it's not straight up and down, perfectly perpendicular to the way the rotor is set in there. It's on a little bit of a angle like this. So the number 1 concave having bars placed helically just increases the threshing that much more. What number or percent, I don't know how to do it.
And it looks cool too.
That we I did a lot of this testing and development, and I had cans. The bed of my pickup was full of spray paint cans, because you'd put them in, run it for 10, 15 acres, repaint on it to see how the wear was.
Okay.
And then we had several different concaves throughout this test process with different angles of bars, trying to figure out what the most ideal one was to be able to capture and increase the threshing even more than what it's already been.
So is there any, I assume that the bars on these are round. I've heard round a bunch. Or are they square?
Well, he said round, but then they cut into them to give it more surface. So it's round on the outside, but not quite round on the inside. At least getting a visual.
Yeah, I don't know that this will work, so I'm not a good... Can you guys see this at all?
Yeah.
Yep.
This bar here is ours.
So you have to go to
it's
YouTube.
Round bar and cut a little bit of a notch that just coincidentally enough lines up with the shape of an ear of corn. So in theory, you set an ear of corn on one of our concave bars, give it a spin, kernels are going to fly off.
Yep. Okay. It should be, so I think you mentioned too that the new XPR3s have more of a sweet spot for setting.
Yeah, so that's the threshing is better. That's correct. And then the one thing that we're after too, and have been after, is trying to get, like, the truth is there's a lot of farms where the owner, the guys writing the checks, may not be the same guy sitting in the seat of the combine, right? Like, they've got hired hands, and whether that's local or even help from different countries nowadays, especially seems to be more popular on these harvest crews. They may not know anything about a combine, and they get hired to, or may know very little. I shouldn't say know nothing, but they'll know very little, and then the farmer that's paying the bills, we want to put his mind at ease and know that if you have these concaves in there, it's hard to get a sample that is undesirable. It's hard to get a sample of grain that the elevator is going to dock you for. So by enlarging that sweet spot of settings, that should be something that's able to help put the farmer's mind up. And then the operator, where sometimes, different hybrids harvest so differently. And you used to, like, I know we used to keep a book for variety A, this was my settings. Variety B, this was my settings. This was the moisture. Well, you throw that all out the window now. I mean, you might change your concave 3 millimeters. And I've had guys call and say, where do I start? And I'll tell them, set your concave at 20, your rotor at 300. And then I talk to them at the end of the year. I say, hey, I never changed anything. Like I picked all my corn and never changed one thing. I'm thinking, well, that's good for our product, but I mean, if that was me in a combine seat, I'd be terribly bored all those hours not being able to change anything.
I'd be scared. I'd be scared that I should be changing it.
Do you think John Deere Ops follows that and tells you, like mine's telling me, this soil, I use this much more fuel. Is there a setting of the concave to say, with this setting, I use this much more fuel, I had this much more bushel?
It could probably tell you that, but I bet what it's doing is on these automated combines that are using cameras and things of that nature, that's adjusting it for you.
Yeah.
Would probably tell you how much less it's changing than the old ones.
AI all the way.
So there's a lot of things that I assume, Todd, you've gained in experience because of your previous job history and what you're doing now. When guys are calling you, they're probably asking you a lot about different things in their combine, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it even stems, it goes away from combines to planters or sprayers. Those are my three main focuses at the dealership were planters, seeders, sprayers, and combines. So, but with these combines, there's a lot of other things that are, a combine is a very, very important, obviously. I mean, that's how we all get paid, right? Is what goes through the combine. That's how we get our money worth, or our money back for the year. There's a lot of things outside the concave and separation grate part of the combine that's extremely important to have a good understanding of what it's doing for you. So you're right. The questions will expand well beyond just a concave.
So for our listeners, we got to ask Farm for Profit.
Hold on, I got a thought here. Why don't we team up with you guys and let's put some tips together for settings on a combine?
Yeah, that'd be great.
What if we, after this show, put some together and then we can share those, I don't know, weekly, monthly, try to get them timely before the season so they're at least fresh in the mind of our listeners?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, I know, like I said, it's one of those things that if I can help anybody, I mean, I'm willing to help. I know, concaves aside, there's still a lot of other tweaks and adjustments that you can make on a combine that really make it sing for you.
Okay. I like that. But you got a good question coming, Dave. I just didn't want to pass up the opportunity.
On the Farm for Profit side, do you have any numbers of how much more profitable I can be if I use your product? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Yeah.
So we've got ROI calculators, a couple different versions, a really in-depth one that gets down into, I mean, and I'm talking, you can go down to deciding or comparing how much LP gas or natural gas, whatever you're using to burn with your dryers. It's hard. There's a lot of other factors, but you can get into that much detail with concaves combines with our concaves, combines without. But the three main things that we typically do are a ground speed, dockage at the elevator for FM or splits for seed, and then fuel usage. Fuel usage is the one thing we haven't really talked about. And it's not uncommon to be able to save yourself a gallon, depending on the model of combine that we're running here, a gallon to 2.5 gallons an hour of fuel just by changing concaves over to these XBR3s. That would be all savings. Trackable. A lot of the reports and data we get on combines are through Operations Center.
Okay.
You were asking.
Well, I only have one other question. What if I have an old 9500 combine?
It'd probably be like a walker machine.
They'd be they'd be walkers.
So there's probably not a concave.
Is there any kind of? It's got to be a rotor.
Maybe go to like the first combine with a rotor.
We had New Holland. What was that?
I thought Gleaner had it a long time ago.
It's a sideways rotor.
That's a cylinder.
Cylinder. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we unfortunately don't get those concaves on the walkers are big. I mean, it's a big chunk of steel that you're wrestling with a lot of the time, and we don't get anything for us has got to be rotor-based machines.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Todd, Tanner had a great suggestion on doing some combine tips. The first crop that will probably be ready to be harvested is wheat. So let's talk about wheat before we let you go. What are your suggestions for the concave and the combine settings for wheat?
So if we're talking, our concaves, then pretty simply you're going to get the same. It's going to be the same in all the crops. A couple rules of thumb: the rotor speed is going to be a little bit slower, and the concave opening, the clearance of the concave as you're running is going to be a little bit more. So those two things are going to change your quality. And they're also going to change, if you're not running material as fast from front to back with like a high rotor speed, then you're going to have a better chance to get the grain off or the grain out of the head in the combine. And with wheat, that's the big thing, right? Like combine speed in wheat is dictated by what you're willing to live with loss-wise. Because it's a high loss crop. Like there's so many seeds, and like corn, you never want to see a kernel. You want to see a kernel on the ground every now and then. Wheat, you're going to see a lot of berries on the ground in a behind a combine, no matter what you do. But how much are you willing to live with as far as an acceptable loss? What's acceptable to you and your farm? The other thing you get into is, there's different additions that you can add if you're having trouble with chaff or overload. A lot of the time in wheat, it's a dead, very much decayed crop that's frail and brittle. So you can almost end up with more confetti-like pieces of straw than what you would like to. Like you don't always end up with long strips of straw that can handle being bounced over the chaff or the cleaning system of the combine. So sometimes an overload in wheat is common, like you overload the left side of your chaffer or the right side of your chaffer. John Deere makes plates that you can insert into your separation grate area that helps dictate where the straw is coming out of the rotor cage to help alleviate any overload. And then the other thing is with like the feed accelerator, the feeder house speed of the machine. You want your slower the better, and everybody questions us a little bit on why we would run like a feed accelerator. For example, you've got your main feeder house, brings all the grain up, feed accelerator that throws it up into the rotor. Why would you want to? We run it on slow all the time, almost every crop. And basically what that's doing is that's giving you the key to keeping the combine completely consistently full from front to back. You want it to be, you don't want an area in the machine where you got, if the feed accelerator's on fast and you're driving really, really slow, then it's kind of got a little bit of a gap in the flow of material there. And that's not necessarily what you want. You want a combine to be as consistently full from front to back, all the way up to the cutter bar, the feeder house, to the chopper or spreader, or just the windrow part of it, that as you can get it to be.
Perfect.
Nice.
Well, I think that's some good tips to get started. I mean, yeah, that was one thing I learned, that the combine is most efficient when it's full. Mm-hmm. There's a fine line between full and clogged.
And too full.
Full and clogged.
Yeah, then unfortunately, like there's where Case kind of has a leg up, because they've got if you get it too full and you slug it up, you got a button you can push that just unwinds the rotor. So unplugging it becomes, I've done it in both, unfortunately, and it's a whole lot easier to push a button and unload the combine than it is to start unbolting concaves or taking any kind of cutting device and trying to cut the wads out of there.
Right.
It can be a lot of fun.
Anytime you have to take concave off, whether to install new ones or not, it's not a fun day. These things are big and built like a brick house, man.
Yeah.
They're heavy duty.
Yeah.
Especially from you take the OEM ones out and you're like, oh, this ain't too bad, and then you grab the XPRs and you're like, oh boy, I should have lifted some more weights.
Should have or shouldn't have.
Yeah.
That's one thing when I was at the dealership, I installed a lot of those 25 sets. I mean, a pretty good chunk of them. And I told myself at the end of that year, I was like, I am never lifting another concave the rest of my life. And so what do? I come work for a concave company that I do it 100 times a year, just installing and removing concaves all year long.
Yeah. Well, that's good, Todd. We learned a lot today. We appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to getting some more tips out of you as well. But I think the major farm-for-profit portion that we got out of this is when your concave is worn out, you're going to need to replace it. So why not replace it with something that is going to be top of the line or a performance upgrade, or according to Dave, a thucket.
A thuck.
Yeah. Oh, a thuck. That's what it was.
But even if they aren't worn out,
correct.
It's probably a good time
potential investment, because we could lower your rotor loss, you have less damage, cleaner samples. We can boost profitability by potentially gaining capacity. It sounded like a lot of different things that maybe for someone who didn't think about it, your concave could provide you.
Right. Fuel savings.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Todd, just to reward you for your advice and the information that you guys have, if somebody wants to reach out and learn more about Estes Concaves, your XPR3s, how do they do that?
So we've got a website. It's just EstusPerformanceConcaves.com. You can just Google search XPR2s, XPR3s, Estes Concaves. Sometimes you can even just search concaves, and ours won't be too far down from the list.
Yep. Good.
And that'd be the best way. We've got a utility on there where you can browse around the website, and then look a little form. Just give us your name, phone number, and email address, and we'll be in touch with you in a few hours. Most every day.
Yep. I will say it does seem like, so when I first got into looking for concaves, you guys were the premier ones to go to. Everyone I talked to, go to Estes XPR2s. And then now all of a sudden we go to all these farm shows. It seems like every other booth is a concave booth. So a lot of competition for you out there, but I think that, flattery for you, right? They're trying to you got a good business plan. So great job there.
And it's it's one of those things that it's just a part of the combine that can be, all these companies that make concaves are good. Like they're all going to be better than the OEM, or else they wouldn't be in business. Like they have to have something that they provide that can make that combine better. So, I'd love it to be ours, but there's all kinds of them out there for different cropping situations, whatever you may come across. Yep.
Good. Well, with that, I say we challenge our listeners to, one, check in on the concaves that they've got, and probably their winter special program is going to give them an update on where they're standing at. But then, two, going after one of those calculators and seeing if this could be a fit for them to add a little extra profitability to their operation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, with that, Todd, we thank you again for hanging out with us. And listeners, we'll see you next time.